All right. Thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate you all coming and attending the first Clinical Research Connections meeting. We do have Dr. Flagg here with us today, and so he's going to do a quick welcome to everybody. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Flagg.
Well, thanks, Aaron, and great to see everybody. It looks like we've got 90 or so participants in this meeting. And I think one of the things we wonder is if virtual is easier to attend, and we have great turnouts like this. So let me just say a couple words, and I'll flip things back to Aaron. You know, over the course of probably 3 different versions of this meeting over time, there's been a central effort in research administration to try to have outreach directly to primarily coordinators, also including faculty members of interest and other leadership on campus, but directly to interact in a regular way to allow us to express things that are going on in the research community. And maybe more importantly, to receive feedback directly from you, things that are working, things that might be needs, things that aren't working, whatever the case may be. So despite the COVID pandemic and everything still going on, this seemed like a good time to restart things and move in this direction. One of the things I've said about past iterations of this meeting, and I think it'll be true here, we'll let Aaron and Ben comment as well, that if you're a research coordinator or a leader of a research coordinating team and you come to this meeting regularly, you shouldn't be surprised by major changes. We'll try to cover what's on the horizon, forecast that to you so you can be prepared. On a high level, I think we should all be very proud of what we've done as a research community over the last, I'd say 18 months, I guess it's more than 18 months, to continue to serve our core mission, which is research and advancing healthcare through our research activities. I know it's been a trying time. Despite some of these administrative roles, I continue to see patients and do clinical research. And it has been a time when I feel closer to my team than I have in the past because of what we've been through, and also know the significant strain on all those involved to try to get through that. So I want to just acknowledge that. And there's a lot of dinging going, I guess knocked out our people. Just acknowledge all that you've done together as a team. Clinical research is the ultimate team sport, I think, in academia, and those of us that are in it realize that. Thank you for your service. And then also thank you for participating today. We really hope that this is a helpful, predictable way to interact with us. As I said, give us your feedback. We'll provide you what's going on and so forth. So with that, Aaron and Ben, I'll pass things back to you, and thanks for your leadership as well as everybody else involved with this and getting this off the ground. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Flagg. So yeah, as Dr. Flagg mentioned, you know, kind of the point of this meeting is to you know, communicate any changes in clinical research that are happening here across campus. But additionally, you know, we want to get feedback from all of you who are, you know, kind of the boots on the ground conducting the clinical research here on campus. And so while we certainly will be devoting a part of this meeting towards general updates of things that are happening across campus, we certainly want to make this an avenue for all of you to provide feedback and to be able to express any concerns that any of you might have, or you know, just kind of generate topics of discussion for future meetings as well. So with that, I should probably introduce myself and Ben. So I am Aaron Mobley. I'm the director for CREST, and I've been tasked with facilitating this meeting, this monthly meeting. And so I'll be working on facilitating this in pairing up with Ben on this. So Ben, I don't know if you want to jump in and introduce yourself here as well.
Sure. I'm Ben Ashali. I'm the Regulatory and Trial Operations Associate Director in the OVCR. I work with Aaron and CREST and the Cell Therapy Operations Program and a couple of other teams in Dr. Flagg's office.
Great, thank you. So to kick this off, we were hoping to kind of do some quick polling. So, you know, we've introduced ourselves to you. We're hoping through some polls that, you know, you guys can kind of introduce who you are, whoever is in attendance for this meeting. So let me see if I can get the polls going here. So we have a few different polls that we want to conduct here. And so kind of some ground rules for conducting these. So some of them are going to be very obvious. You're going to respond with one of the selections. There are others that if you may not fit directly into one of those selections, you can certainly select other. And we ask, if you do select other, that you provide your response within the chat box of the actual meeting as well, so that we can make sure that we're capturing everybody who's involved and get everybody's opinions on all of these questions. So with that, we'll start the first question here. So first, as I said, we just want to make sure that we're capturing everyone who is in attendance and kind of what your role is, so that we know what's happening here, who's joining us in this meeting. So obviously some of these are pretty obvious. The roles that may be a little bit less obvious are department clinical research admin or central clinical research admin. By central clinical research admin, generally we're meaning people who are working with COMERB or the CREO group or regulatory compliance or people that fall within those kinds of teams. So we'll just give everybody a little bit of time here to finish participating here. It's great to see that it looks like kind of the vast majority of folks on the call are study coordinators. So that's certainly the audience that we're primarily trying to target here, and then obviously having department research administrators present is helpful as well. All right, so we'll give about 10 more seconds on this one. It looks like we've gotten most of the responses here, so thanks everybody for participating here. All right. So we'll move along to the next question here. So in addition to figuring out, kind of who everyone is on the call, we also want to figure out, kind of how long you have been here and have been here working on campus, specifically within your role in clinical research. So give everybody some time to kind of respond to this question as well. A lot of long timers here, which is great. I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of changes over your time on campus, and so hopefully we can learn from some of the knowledge that you've acquired as well. All right, that was a quick one. Looks like we've got the majority of people have responded here as well. So I'll go ahead and jump off of that one. And then we have one more question here. So, as I kind of mentioned, the point of this meeting is not only to provide general campus clinical research updates, but also to see what we can do to help primarily research coordinators make their jobs a little bit easier here on campus. So what we want to ask you now is a question regarding some of the challenges that you feel like you're facing currently on campus here. So these were a few of the ones that we've been made aware of, and so we certainly want to get everyone's opinion on these, but obviously there are likely a lot of other challenges that certain groups are facing as well. So if you have comments regarding other, please feel free to include those in the chat box. And if you're not comfortable putting those in the chat, you can certainly, at the end of the meeting, there is a email specific to this meeting that only a couple of us have access to. And if you'd prefer to kind of stay anonymous with that, feel free to send an email to that email that I'll show you at the end of the meeting.
And feel free to check more than one. If it's hard for you to just decide on one, you should be able to select a few of these if there's more than one challenge that you guys wanted to highlight.
Thanks, Natasha. All right, so pretty good response rate here as well. It seems pretty clear that turnover and understaffing has impacted. From what I'm hearing, it's kind of impacted everyone across campus, and continues to be an issue. So that's certainly understandable. Understanding processes and requirements, that's interesting. Hopefully this meeting can help us to be able to clarify a lot of those. I know, processes continue to change across campus, and with the past 18 months of the pandemic, processes have continued to change, and we've had kind of a lack of a venue to be able to discuss those processes. So hopefully over the coming months we can help to better clarify some of those processes as well. So this is great feedback. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to look through these and respond to these. So we will take back these responses and keep them in mind as we're continuing to create agendas for future meetings for these and have discussions with clinical research administration here on campus as well.
And Aaron, it might be worthy to note that there are some good responses here in the chat. I don't know if you want to call some of those out.
Sorry, I did not look at those at all. Thanks. Okay, so let's see. Systems not meeting end users' needs. Keeping up to date on COVID rules. Bottlenecks due to a lack of appropriate delegation. That's certainly very important to understand where those are coming from. People who are new to campus and trying to learn about how the resources across campus work. Contracting taking extended efforts or extended periods of time. The encore requirements specific to children's. Space is becoming more and more of an issue as well. And then communicating and prioritizing regulatory compliance requirements across departments and groups. All right. And then someone again emphasizes turnover in space and another vote for insufficient office space. So certainly that seems to be a trend there. So thanks everyone for sharing this feedback. All right, so that's the kind of the information, the initial information we were hoping to gather from all of you. So we do have a couple of topics for discussion that we wanted to get through today. So the first one being the research studies website and the newsletter. So for that, I'm going to hand this over to Natasha and Matt for them to share about that. So Natasha.
Great, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Great. Can everybody see it okay? Great. So as Aaron mentioned, my name's Natasha Palmer, and I'm the Director of Communications for Office of Regulatory Compliance and University Research. And I'm going to be taking a few minutes today to talk about research studies. And Matt Steinbus is a project manager with us on the team as well. We've kind of been taking the lead on research studies here on campus, and you may have attended a town hall or two in the past. Also earlier today, for those that registered, we sent out some attachments that has a guide for the web admin tool and also just a quick resource tool of some guidance with Encore fields and research studies fields. So that's a good resource for you as well. Before we move forward in this presentation, we had a few questions that we wanted to ask the group as well. So Matt, if you want to launch that, that'd be great.
Okay. Let's see. So it was, let me restart this. Relaunchable. All right, I think it should be working now.
So there's 3 questions here for everyone. If you guys could just take a minute. So
Okay, looking about 50-50 on the first question.
So we might want to spend some time on the admin tool then, Matt.
Yeah, looks like not many people have used the admin tool, and a little more than a little bit near 2/3 have seen the research newsletter, so that's a good amount.
Yep.
Alrighty, so yeah, I'm going to do a quick run through of the research studies website, kind of just show it off to people unfamiliar with it, but I'm going to spend the most time reviewing the admin tool. It looks like most people have not used it, and in my introduction, I'll explain some things, but let's make sure I am sharing the correct screen. All right, I'm assuming everybody can see this. So this is the research studies website, researchstudies.cuanschutz.edu. This was built and made as a resource for researchers on campus to be able to use this as a recruiting tool and to kind of advertise what great amounts of research is going on the Anschutz campus. As you can see, we have over, I believe, 1,200 studies currently listed in 29 locations and over 100,000 study volunteers. This information sorry, my dog is freaking out about something, so I apologize for my dog barking. This website is automatically run through Encore. So a couple of the main things of the questions Natasha and I get is why isn't my study being listed on the research studies website? Number one, the study should be in Encore and it should have a status of open to accrual. As long as those 2 prerequisites are filled, there's another one that in Encore, there's a field that says omit from web. And that's so if you aren't actively recruiting or if your study is very specifically looking at a very small population that you don't want to advertise out, you can mark that as yes, and the study won't show up on the website. And sometimes it's marked as yes, unknowing what it does. And that's usually a hurdle for the study to show up here. So if you're in Encore and you're checking out your website, you can just type in the COBRA number right there and hopefully it will come up as long as the study's in Encore and it's open to accrual. If your study isn't showing up for some reason, please email us. The email address we'll share in some of the documents, but it's just researchstudies@cuanschutz.edu. Natasha and I are here to help kind of troubleshoot any issues. But like we said, this is mainly a resource for you guys to help with study recruitment. You may have seen a email come through with information about somebody who's interested in your study and you're like, where did this come from? So this is where the email is generated from. I'll just go quickly to the first study I can find here. So if I was interested in doing this study, somebody from the community comes in and looks at it and clicks, let's get started. They fill out demographic information, and that demographic information is sent to whoever is listed as a primary contact in Encore. So we are working on beefing this up around the community and getting the word out to increase traffic to this website to be the primary way people find out about research. And as you can see back in the categories, there's very many categories where your research can show up into. So if you have a study that maybe it's pediatrics, but it's also dental, or maybe it's respiratory, but it's also infectious disease, your study will show up in both. And I'll show you through the editing tool how to make sure your research is categorized correctly for people to be able to find it. Some other important information on here is you can search by location. So children's is on here. So a CTRC in Boulder, UC Boulder's in here. Of course, the main hospital is the highest one. And then this scrolling banner is periodically changes. Sometimes it's random and sometimes it's based off of the newsletter, which Natasha will talk in a little bit, but we just wanted to highlight some studies. So if you especially if you're especially having trouble recruiting, we can talk to you about having your study highlighted on here if you reach out to us at the research studies at cuanschutz.edu. Plus there's the information I went over about how many studies there are. And what I really like too is for research novices, there's a lot of information about what is clinical research, what are research studies. There's some videos people can watch, as well as other links about research. So we're trying to make this an educational tool to the community as well. So I'll go over into the admin tool. It looks like I got kicked out, but it's the web address is som.ucdenver/research studies admin. This is in the instructions information that was included in the invite. So you should be able to find that there. And hopefully it will load up here in a second. It seems like my connection's going a little slowly. You do have to do a secondary sign on. You do have to have credentials, CU Anschutz credentials to be able to log on to this. And then my view is going to be a little bit different from everyone else's because I am able to see all the research studies, but when you log on, you probably won't see the stuff at the bottom because this is studies that have been edited and changed, unless you've gone in and edited and changed your study. To be able to find your study, you just click this caret and select what you're looking for. You won't have these hundreds of studies. You should only be able to see the studies you're listed as an editor or a primary contact on. If you're not listed as an editor or a primary contact, you can have the primary contact, usually a PI. Sometimes the research coordinators are listed in Encore. They can come in and add you. You can also reach out to us at the research studies email address. We just request, we would need to see the delegation of authority log just to confirm that you're on the study, and we can assist you walking through adding you as an editor. We try to answer the emails within 24 hours. It's an inbox we try to clear as soon as possible. Just please be patient with us if it takes a little while to get back to you, but we aim to answer all questions within 24 hours. So some important stuff on here before we get into editing. That email I was talking about collects participant data. So you can go in here and see the demographics of who is interested in your study by age, by ethnicity, gender, zip code. So it's a great way to see who you're reaching out to via this website, who's really pinging on this study. There's also some screening information in here as well. If you want more information about this, it's on some of the documents that we attached, and you can also reach out to us. So the study I was connected to stopped recruitment, so I can't access my study anymore, which I usually use for showing people. It was the COVID-19 biobank. Dr. Flagg's the PI on that. So I'm just going to choose this healthy behavior study, which is right next to it. Apologies if this is your study. You're getting a little bit of extra advertisement for it, but we'll just look at it. So a couple things you can do. You can add editors if you've already edited it. So if you have edited your study, it's not going to show up in this drop down. You have to go down to this area. So sometimes it'll be hard to find. So you can also just view it. But what most people are going to go into this for is to update their study. So you click on the update study and it will go into here. And this looks a little different because the first thing that it will ask you is for the COMERB advertising component submission form. So we know that your study may be using an external IRB besides COMERB, but we need just proof of documentation that you have submitted this language, pictures, whatever you're going to be using on this website through your IRB. Specifically, COMERB has a form for this. It's called the Advertising Component Submission Form. It can be found on the COMERB website under the form link. Just make sure that's filled out, submitted, and then linked. And when we review it, we just make sure that everything that is changed and updated matches what COMERB knows that you guys are using for your language, for your compensation, study visits, etc. So you can change a lot of this stuff. A lot of research studies have really complicated titles that aren't super attractive to a regular person in the community. So as long as it's COMERB approved, you can simplify your title. You can put in a quick primary objective, a description of what you're looking for. And as I was talking about before, the categories. So every category that is listed here will show, this study will show up on the main page under these categories. This automatically is fed through Encore to the site if you didn't touch it. So it's possible that you put categories in Encore that are showing up on the site right now, but you can go in and change it on here. If you make changes on this website, it will not make changes to Encore. So be aware of that. If you make changes to Encore, it will show up to this website at midnight, the night of what you're doing. It's when the data switches over. So the changes won't be immediately, but you should see them the next day. So an important thing about categories, the top category, which you list as number 1, is usually what the image defaults as. So some of the images for nutrition and metabolism look different from the healthy volunteers image. So whatever images you want, you can switch around what the most important category is for you. For the category image, you can use your own image as long as it's COMERB approved. And then this principal investigator image is pulled automatically from cudoctors.com. Some of the PIs don't have their own pictures up on cudoctors.com, but a lot do. I think we've gone through and updated this, and the majority of studies now have the correct PI picture. If your PI wants a different picture, you can change that as long as it's COMERB approved. You can add a red cap link. You can add additional fields such as age range, some screening information, Facebook, Twitter profiles if you have them. We do ask if you do have a Facebook and Twitter link that you link back to the research studies website. So it's kind of a shared effort, but you can add any of these as long as it's COMERB approved. And the attached file, this is where a lot of people just put their research flyer. So once you submit this, it doesn't automatically change the website. We have to review it. Just like I said, make sure you had approval from COMERB or your IRB to use this advertising. And as soon as we approve it, it goes live. So an important thing is just that you guys as researchers are sharing this and getting the word out, because that's how this will be an even more powerful recruiting tool across campus. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you have. Natasha and I are here to help and to make this as powerful as possible. The website is just researchstudies@cuanschutz.edu. And if you have any questions about my presentation, you can put it in chat and we'll try to answer the questions throughout the rest of the presentation. And of course, you can just reach out via email at any time and we'll answer those as soon as we can.
Matt, I think one of the questions that popped up is, so can we as editors so do we add editors through Encore, or do we need to send a request to research admin? Do you want to?
Yes, we would prefer that you add primary contacts in Encore. It's just a cleaner way to do it. But if you look at the instructions, it will show you how to add an editor. But the primary contact has to be the one who adds them. And sometimes it's a PI and they get real busy. So we understand that sometimes your PI is not available to go into the website and add you if you're a research coordinator that wasn't added in Encore. So that's when we'd be able to help you out with sending us the DOA log, and we can walk you through the process.
So Matt, just to make sure I'm understanding, it automatically defaults to whoever the primary contact in Encore is.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, if there weren't any other questions, I'll look at the chat, but I'm gonna pass it back to Natasha. And she's gonna talk a little bit about the newsletter that has recently started to come out. So I'm gonna stop my sharing.
Thank you. Okay. As Matt mentioned and kind of walked through the research studies webpage in general and a little bit about the back end of it, in chat, I also attached those resource tools. So there's a web admin instruction guide and also another resource with the fields for Encore and how that translates into research studies. So that should be in the chat as well. This is just kind of the example of what Matt was kind of walking through when you're on the research study site, how you can find a study, and then it derives back to the more specifics about that study. Let me return. Oops, let me go back. So if somebody does say that they are interested in your particular study, we wanted to just share that this is an example of an email that the research study team would get. This is just a placeholder. We made up this COMERB number, and apologies if this is your title, but just wanted you to get an example of, you might be receiving an email in your email box that would be coming from research studies that would have the subject title potential research participant from research studies. So just be mindful that those emails might be coming through. As Matt alluded to, when folks click on that, we highly encourage the research study team to get back to that person within 1 to 2 business days. And this is an example of the kind of that contact information that you would be receiving from them.
And just real quick, Natasha, there was a question. Is there a way to stop the PI from getting emails about potential participants? There is. This was actually a new tool that was added just a week or 2 ago. It is in the admin tool. Under editors, you should be able to unclick people. So reach out to us afterwards if you can't access that. But in the admin tool, I just showed you can click and unclick who receives these I'm interested in your research studies emails.
And then I think there was another question, Matt. Is that email only for people listed as primary contact in Encore?
Yes.
So as all of you, I'm sure, given the audience is composed of folks that have been in clinical research at this campus for more than 5 years, over the course of that time, I'm sure you have seen multiple emails from a variety of different studies that has appeared throughout time. Sometimes we get emails like 6 in a day, and then it will be quiet, and then we'll get them spattered once or twice a week. So we really wanted to come up with a solution that would kind of streamline these efforts. Folks were feeling that their research study would still have the opportunity to be promoted, but that it was in a true streamlined approach. So folks aren't getting bombarded by emails haphazardly, that there's really a consistent format to it and a reason. So we came up with our research studies newsletter that is going to be distributed twice a month. The first debuted last week. And this is essentially kind of what you saw with the studies being featured in a list, and it drives you directly to your research studies page. And as Matt spent the time kind of going through the web admin tool, so that each study team would have the opportunity to update their information correctly. Really, our focus and efforts are driving people to the research studies page and to your study page specifically. This tool, the researchstudies.cuanschutz.edu, was truly created with the end user in mind, being that of the community. And we got community engagement to help participate as we were crafting this, putting this together, and really got feedback from the community. Internally, we like to use the phrase clinical trials, but the community really felt that the word research studies was more encompassing and engaging and inclusive. So that's how we landed with that and put this together. So as Matt also kind of walked through the demo of the website itself, on the home page, there is a block kind of in the center of the page, right under view all research studies currently enrolling participants. These studies are changing lives. So that is going to be a rotation of studies on the homepage. So if your study was in the latest issue of the Research Studies newsletter, it would be rotating through that so that you would get front page kind of exposure, especially if you are looking for recruitment of a specific category of folks. On this side here, as we mentioned, with these resources that we've put together, once your information is updated in Encore, that information feeds over to the Research Studies admin tool. If you could complete this link, if you are looking for additional recruitment, that goes into that form stack link, that information is then uploaded, and then we're able to put together the newsletter to send that out on a weekly basis. Bi-weekly, twice a month. If you have questions about that distribution or how that process works, please feel free to email us at researchstudies@cuanschutz.edu. But we really just wanted to kind of share with everyone what that looks like, kind of the methodology behind it, and how we came up with the process and how we were able to get community and stakeholder buy-in in the process as well. So we appreciate all your efforts in helping to streamline this process. If there are any questions?
I think we covered most of them. There was a previous question regarding if there's multiple editors in Encore, can they edit the site in the admin tool? And yes, if you're listed as a primary contact in Encore, you should be able to have access to the tool. If not, just reach out to us and we can walk you through and assist.
Great. And these are, again, as I mentioned, the tip sheets are in the chat and we emailed those to you as well. If by chance you didn't get those, let us know. We can forward that. And as always, email, reach out. We're here to help and want to help. So please don't hesitate to ask. And with that, Erin, I think Sam is up.
Yeah, so next we want to kick it over to Sam Ellis to give us a quick update about the CU Research Pharmacy. So I'll turn it over to you, Sam.
Great, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me come and speak a little bit today about the research pharmacy. It's obviously something I'm very passionate about. So I'm excited to be working with you all in the near future, if I'm not already, about getting the use of the research pharmacy up and going and supporting the research efforts in this campus. Because I agree with what Tom said in the beginning, and this is truly a team effort. And we're here to support the research efforts that you guys are all working so hard towards. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the research pharmacy and realizing this is a brand new pharmacy that's coming into campus and we'll be working very closely towards the end of this year and beginning of 2022. But the research pharmacy will be a state-of-the-art pharmacy in the new Anschutz Health Science building on the first floor. And it'll be staffed with a couple pharmacists and 2 technicians, and we'll be able to accommodate many of the pharmacy needs that our campus needs to conduct research. We'll have state-of-the-art compounding facilities for both sterile and non-sterile products, as well as hazardous and non-hazardous products. We'll be working with researchers and are currently to develop compounding services and compounding needs of our researchers for things like, active capsules and placebos and things like that. So the process of this, we have the website, which is up here that you can see. We'll be working with in kind of two phases to roll this research pharmacy out. The first phase will be focusing on the transition of the CTRC into the new Anschutz Health Science Building. So we'll be working with those research teams very closely in the next couple months to transition those. The timelines right now, as far as they're loosely set, I think we're pretty close, but the pharmacy will actually get a move-in date in the end of October, so next month. And then we'll be working through the month of November to get our licensures and our certifications all set. And the CTRC will be transitioning over December 13th is the last date that I've heard. Once we're in the midst of that transition for the CTRC, we'll be obviously rolling out new studies beginning in the new year. So if you have studies that are going to be coming to fruition soon, or you're in the planning process, please make sure and reach out to us through our email address, which can be found on the website. We're working with the researchers now to start budget planning for their research. And I think that's going to be a very important piece. On our website, we also have our fee structure, which includes kind of two different tiers, one for investigator-initiated trials and one for industry-sponsored trials. But many of our duties or responsibilities as part of this pharmacy won't necessarily fall into these fee structures. So it'll be very important for research coordinators and PIs to reach out to us in the planning process to understand what the fee structures might be, especially if there's something unique about the study, such as compounding or working with hazardous materials. So the planning process will happen. We'll be rolling out new studies, and we'll be transitioning existing studies as well into this new research pharmacy. So right now there's a number of studies across campus where investigator teams are managing their own research products, and we'll be working with those teams to help transition to the use of the new pharmacy as well. Sometime in the beginning of 2022, now that things have kind of been delayed with this new research pharmacy. As far as the kind of tools that you'll be seeing from me coming up in the near future, we'll have clear kind of flow sheets and documentation about how to use the research pharmacy, so how to engage it, and what the expectation is as we move through the process of planning studies, clear through to the implementation, the site initiation visits, and all the other responsibilities that we'll have in between, clear from receiving product to final study closeouts. So I'm super excited to get this going. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, but as we roll this out, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on the website. Is our email address. It's research.pharmacy@cuanschutz.edu. So please reach out to us, and we're happy to help you in whatever stage that your studies might be in at this point, and come up with a clear plan of how we can assist. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions on chat. I don't know if we want to do any other types of questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I put the the URL for the research pharmacy's website in chat. So feel free to go and peruse that site. As Sam said, the email address is on there as well. It's research.pharmacy@cuanschutz.edu. But yeah, if anybody has any questions for Sam, feel free to put them in chat. One of the questions is outpatient studies only, ?
Yeah, I see that one. Yes. I think Pam wrote that one. Yeah. So we'll only be working with inpatient studies. The hospital investigational drug service, many of you have worked with NAE maybe in the past. They'll still be handling all pharmacy research efforts within the inpatient setting. Great question.
Any other questions for Sam? Looks like another one just popped in.
So yeah, there's a few more coming up here. So let me just look through these real quick. So sound like we should expect research. So if you have studies that are currently conducted in the CTRC, we'll be reaching out to you in the next week or two to inquire about your pharmacy needs and start planning that process for the transition of the research pharmacy from the hospital to the CU Anschutz Research Pharmacy. So that planning process I've done a number of times in my current service center over at the Barbara Davis Center for Diabetes, where we've transitioned studies from one pharmacy to my pharmacy. And so I feel pretty comfortable with that process. So that'll be kind of this first phase that'll happen here in the next week or two. We'll start planning those. And then that'll go live December 13th. Other outpatient studies then will transition after we kind of get the CTRC up and going and supported fully, which will be just in the beginning of 2022. But again, I would highly encourage people to reach out to us in anticipation of this transition and helping you plan and process your pharmacy needs. A few other ones on here. Let me go back. I think
A couple of other questions that show up. What about studies where the study teams are managing drugs under an IPMP?
So that process will end up changing a little bit in the new year as well. So as part of our kind of regulatory requirements from our federal agencies, we definitely need to start utilizing a research pharmacy. So if you've currently been handling your investigational product through the IMP or IPMP process, then we'll be reaching out to you to kind of determine where your study is and what your needs might be. There will be some studies that we might not need to become involved with, and other studies, especially those that still have longer recruitment windows and duration of follow-up with investigational product, that we will help transition that to the new research pharmacy.
All right, another question. What about studies that are using inpatient at UC Health for investigational drug, but then we'll have follow-up visits at the CTRC in later visits? How would those studies work?
Yeah, great question. So if drug is being administered in the hospital setting in the inpatient CTRC, then that needs to go through the hospital pharmacy. Where this gets a little bit difficult, not difficult, but a little bit more complex, is that if patients, like right now, have a study where the first dose is actually administered in the inpatient CTRC, so the patient can be observed for 48 hours. And then the remaining 6 doses, monthly doses, are in the outpatient setting. And so the Nay and I have worked very closely on this to come up with a good plan where I'm currently the primary research pharmacy, but I can transfer a dose to the inpatient setting, and they will prepare that dose and be responsible for the distribution and dispensing for their staff to administer that in the inpatient CTRC. So there is a way that we can collaborate together to make sure those needs are met.
So it sounds like what you're saying, Sam, is that if there's any outpatient component of the study, you should be treated as the primary pharmacy. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say always, but I really will work with Nay closely to ensure that wherever they're getting the majority of the doses, we'll probably make that the primary pharmacy. So if 80% of the doses are in the inpatient side, then we'll have Nay be the primary, and she'll transfer product to me.
Okay, so it just needs to be a discussion probably with both of you in the startup process.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And then one other question that I'm seeing here is saying, right, as of the current process for submitting studies is to go through Nay's pharmacy for the startup process. A lot of these studies that we're submitting now aren't actually going to start probably until the new year. So when should we kind of transition that startup process so that we're coming to you instead of going to Nay?
Yeah, I think we can actually start those conversations now, as far as the transfer of any research studies. We have myself, and then I have Sue Mead, who's also a pharmacist here in the School of Pharmacy, who's assisting in these conversations. So I think we can start this process with the plan then that we wouldn't have a pharmacy role until after our licensure happens, which is really that first week in December. So at that point in time, we can easily take on additional studies and the workload into the research pharmacy. So if you have studies now that you know you won't be recruiting, or site initiation visits won't be until the end of the year or the first part of 2022, please reach out to us and we can work with you to make sure those studies come to us appropriately. At this point in time, we're planning on honoring any old budgets that people have. And so we're not asking individual research teams to come up with a bunch of additional funds to support what we have on our fee structure. We recognize that a lot of the planning that occurs into these grants have happened well over a year or two ago. And so we want to make sure and work with our research community and not against them, for sure.
One other question that I had is, I mean, obviously for a lot of studies, this is going to require updating 1572s to update the address of the pharmacy. Is the new address for your pharmacy available on the website, on your website?
It's not at this point. I'm not sure I've even seen a communication with the exact room number yet. But we'll put that up as soon as we get it. You're absolutely right. The 1572 process and coming up with our delegation logs kind of information, will be kind of a two-phase process in my mind. The first one will be starting these discussions and making sure that coordinators, as well as the sponsors and CROs, have our standard operating procedures for how we're going to transfer and anything from receiving product to storing product, dispensing product, clear to the disposal side. So every sponsor is a little bit different of what they want. So we can provide you those now. The last step, the second step, will be this final certifications of all our refrigerators and freezers and temperature monitoring. Those all have to be complete before we get our pharmacy license. And so we'll be working on those in November to make sure that we have our certifications and certificates and finally our licensure. That'll be the last pieces of information the sponsor will want for that transition.
Okay, thank you. And then there was a follow-up question that came in through the chat saying, can we send an email once this information has been added to the website, to just make sure that it gets out to everybody who's needed. So I don't know if Natasha, maybe we can work with Sam to make sure that that gets out once it's all available.
Yeah, happy to do that. And also there have been a couple of questions, people wondering if this meeting is being recorded, and if so, if they can receive a copy of it. So once the meeting has ended, it takes a little bit to download it. So later in the week, the goal is that all the attendees, all the folks that register for this meeting, would get a link to the recording of this. So we would include the link and also stay in touch with you all as there's any updated information specifically related to the research pharmacy and that information that's been requested.
Great. And then one additional comment that just came in is if there's any standardized communication, like I don't know if there's like a memo or something that is potentially available that we can provide to study sponsors, for these studies that are kind of in the startup process now, so that we can kind of get through, communicate to them what's happening and what the process will be.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really good idea. So I can easily draft something up, and Natasha, is that something we can, put on the website for people to be able to?
Yeah, no, I think we want to drive people to the website, so I'm happy to put that up there so folks can have that as a resource tool. And so we encourage everybody to bookmark that web page right now. Thank you.
Great. All right. So thanks, Sam, for taking the time to meet with us and discuss this. if there are any other questions that anyone has, feel free to reach out, through that the Research Pharmacy email, or you can certainly send the email through the Clinical Research Connections email, and we can make sure that that gets addressed by Sam. So one kind of last thing, I know we're about out of time. We do have several kind of topics for the first few meetings, that we will be discussing over the coming months, but we certainly want to be able to open up the discussion with everybody who's in attendance for any topics that you all might have that you'd like to be discussed in this meeting. So if you have discussion topics that you know of right now, feel free to throw those in the chat box. If there's any that you think of, over the coming weeks or at any point in time, feel free to send those through email to clinicalresearchconnections@cuanschutz.edu. So that's everything that we have for today. We will keep the chat open if anyone has any topics that they want to have discussed that they want to throw in there. Otherwise, thanks everyone for attending this first meeting, and we look forward to talking to you all again next month.
Looks like the room's clearing out, but I'm still recording just in case there's any last minute questions. Please put them in chat and we'll discuss for topics for our next meeting. All righty, looks like we might be done. I'm going to stop recording if everybody's okay with that.
Yep.